My very first guest today. I'm so excited to speak to her today and for to have you all listen to this story. Right now, I'm about to present to you the operations manager at NYU Center for Cybersecurity and the CEO of Knox Brand Media, which is a full service brand strategy company. Please, it gives me great pleasure to present to you Emerald Knox.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate all the amazing things you said. And I also really appreciate our pre interview, which was just a way for me to really think about my story and what I'm doing and come to the conclusion that, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's a new
Yes.
mission for me, you know?
Yes, I'm so happy to hear that. I was also so happy to speak with you to learn more about what you've done. You're really making a change in our communities, and that's where it starts. When we're talking about the issues of police brutality, when we're talking about movements like Black
My
Lives
son is here.
Matter, when
Oh,
we're
this is
talking,
perfect.
hi, yes,
Can you go back in there and be quiet?
no, and then when we're talking about entrepreneurship, you have a beautiful son, you have a beautiful family. Please just tell us just about what you do, and tell us a little bit about your kids and how you got started organizing the march.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm the operations manager at NYU Cyber Center for Cybersecurity, and mostly what I do there is events. I started off doing events and entertainment and directing videos and things like that. So I'm more of an entertainment person. And I switched to academia, number one, because it's super stable, but it also gives you an opportunity to teach. So that's my day-to-day job. And as an entrepreneur, I'm working on Knox Brand Media, which is a branding company that eventually will house smaller brands. I want to really empower Black businesses to think about brand strategy in the same way that these major companies think about it. Long-term brand strategy. You know, we come up with these amazing brands and they're not sustainable because we're not thinking long term. So that's what my company is set out to do. I've been doing it for a while and figuring out what my brand is. But yeah, that's what Knox Brand Media is all about. My family, I'm a single mom. Me and his dad are great, but I'm a single mom raising a son in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. One son, he's 8 years old. And I don't know if you want to get into the story of Black Kids Matter or just the fact that, yeah, I'm here. I started a socialite club with some other single mothers, and we get our kids together and engage before the pandemic, of course, and have play dates and do little
Right.
things just to bond with our kids because I truly believe that having memories are super important and that comes through kind of experience. So
Absolutely. And exactly everything that you've said, Miss Knox, is, and I'll call you Emerald just because we're so close in age. I'm only 26 years old, but I look at you as someone who is young and again necessary, especially as a young Black African American woman, a young Black entrepreneur. You are the voice that they are talking about when we're hearing presidential candidates talk about, the middle class and people in the community and citizens on the ground who are needing to vote and get out and do the work. They're talking about women like you. We're talking about single mothers. We're talking about families. And so to get started, I just want to jump straight into the story of how you single-handedly were able to organize the very first Black Kids Matter March in Brooklyn on Juneteenth this year, 2020. I'll say this for our readers, not our readers. I'm such a journalist. For our listeners who are listening in, I first discovered Emerald and the story about the hashtag Black Kids Matter March right around, I would say it was probably maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the George Floyd incident, which that happened in May. And so, of course, we saw the protests kick up, huge protests across the country and across the world, all the way from May, June, and July. And here it is, August. Today is August 9th, and you're still seeing protests. And so, Juneteenth happening June 19th, between the time of George Floyd's murder in May and between the time of your march, when did it click in your head that you wanted to create a different kind of protest experience for your son?
well, when the George Floyd incident happened, to be honest, I was super numb to it. And I was like, yeah, another one, you know? But then I think because of the pandemic, there's more opportunity for people to sit back and think. So when I saw that people were outraged and protesting and not letting up, like they kept it going. It wasn't a one-time thing. It lasted for a week, 2 weeks. By that third week, I was like, wow, do I want to get left on the other side of history? I can't just sit back and be numb to this. I have to do something. So my first instinct was to take my son out. My first instinct was to go to a march that existed already. I'm a single mother, so take my son with me, right? So what I did was I mentioned it to my son. I said, hey, we're going to go to a protest casually. We're going to a protest tomorrow. And he started crying and like quivering. And like,
wow.
I didn't realize he was so scared. So
wow. What did he say? Did he say anything in particular about what made him afraid? Was it something on the news, or was it something him and his friends heard or talked about?
You know, I actually don't even know where it comes from. I think it's sort of embedded in in Black culture. He automatically was just afraid of the police, and he was quivering, and he literally said, I don't want to die. I don't want you to die. So I was like, we're just going to go protest. It's at the Barclays Center. It's safe. And he was like, no way, I'm not going. So I said, I'm going to leave you home with grandma and I'll go. And he grabbed me. He was like, I'll go with you because I don't want you to die. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so intense, right?
Wow.
I'm just like, I didn't realize that he had those experiences or he had that energy in him because we had never discussed it. It wasn't a topic.
And this is 2020. I mean, we're talking about the time of social media. What you're describing in terms of this conversation that you're having with your Black son, how old is he?
8.
He's 8 years old. The same fear that Black children had back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s marching in the street, fear of their life, because you could get killed, you could get arrested. That fear, it's so crazy to me to imagine an 8-year-old boy in 2020 having and registering that fear, not just fear of the police, but fear to go out with his own mother and to walk in the streets to protest and demand freedom.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's really deep. And that really, I think, gets to the conversation that we rarely ever see mainstream news having, and even police having on a national or local level. Where do we get this healthy fear of the police from when you have to defend yourself and when you're afraid for your lives from the very people that are supposed to protect you? So he's afraid. You're seeing and registering that he has even volunteered, even after stating his fear, courageously saying, Mom, if you go, I'm going too. Now that's a real man. And I got to give him props for that. That's dope.
So I definitely give him so much props for that. And when I heard him talk, I didn't realize that he's having a different experience for me, a different Black experience, because he's a Black man. So even though Black women are killed by the police, obviously with Breonna Taylor, it's happening. I don't believe that we have the same embedded fear that Black men carry along with them. I'm like, I'll go to the protest. I'm actually sometimes a little sassy with police. Like I feel, I don't have this kind of like fear the same way that he had it. So we got together. I said, I'm going to take him to one that was like in the daytime, one that I thought was super safe because the message that the protesters were pitching wasn't as like, it wasn't as negative or harsh, so to speak. And we went to that one and we're walking up to the Barclays Center, which is for him, the Barclays Center is like Jurassic Park worldwide or a basketball game. It's not like a place where a movement will be happening. So he walked up and the police, the energy between the protesters and the police, the tension was so thick that he could see it. So usually in the neighborhood, even though there's a fear of police, during the daytime, a police officer will say, hey, buddy, or hi.
Right.
They had their guns drawn and they weren't saying hi to kids. None of that was happening. So he felt that energy and he tensed up. I get him deeper into the protest and I want to see it. So I'm going to the middle to see, whoever's talking, and he was just terrified. We ended up standing on the outskirts, and I kind of forced him to like put his fist up and take pictures and stuff. And I posted it on Instagram, and then I was asking other moms, like, what are you guys saying to your kids about this? Because there's a lot going on, and you can't ignore it. You'll see it on YouTube, like wherever they are, they're going to see it. You can't hide it from them. And also, it would be very ignorant of me to hide it from him because he's going to have to go through it. So,
right.
Moms were saying, it was mixed messages. Some moms were saying, I talk to them. I've been talking to my kids since they were 3. I've been telling them. And, you know, some of it was a negative to me in the sense of, you've been telling them that they have no, like, a black man in America is, you know, you have to live on the defense, which I just didn't want him to have that burden at 8.
Wow. I mean, that's real. That's a true thing. Here on Read the Bottom Line, my podcast is about getting to the bottom line of the experience that Black Americans have from childhood to teenage years through adulthood. Hopefully, if you stay alive. We grew up, you know, knowing that we'd be lucky to make it until we were 25, you know, lucky to see our 20s. It's in songs. It's ingrained in our culture. So the fear that your son at 8 years old has of even going to a protest, let alone speaking to a police officer on a regular day. And then also hearing mothers speaking to other parents that you also know. You're in Brooklyn, New York. A thriving Black community, even in a thriving Black community with historically Black businesses and communities and homes, there's still a fear of police because we've never have been able to be 100% safe, even in our own communities, because we know people can come into our communities and abuse and terrorize us. So hearing what you're saying that mothers spoke to you about in terms of how they speak to their sons and daughters about police makes me think of one comment my mother said to me, and I'll never forget it. She said, and I can't remember how old I was. I think I was 8, maybe 10, 12. I can't remember. But she told me I would never want to have a son in this country.
Oh, wow.
She said she would never want to raise a Black boy in America.
Sorry.
That's what my mother said to me, you know, when I was very young. And I'll never forget it. And, you know, at first I thought, you know, she was definitely overreacting. I was like, what? But I want a brother. You know, you just think, oh, you just think your parents are just over exaggerating. There's a level of innocence when you're a child, and you hope and pray that things really aren't as bad as they may sound or look, and you look to your parents to be hopeful. But when your parents are telling you something real, you can tell, you know, when it's something serious and it's something that they might not have the power to control. That's when you see kids get afraid. So can you talk more about what kind of helped and aligned in order to be able to put the march together after that protest experience?
Yeah, well, I just want to comment on what you said and about raising a Black man. It's really, really hard to do that. There's like a quote, I want to say it's Malcolm X, when he says or the Nation of Islam or something, where they say that the Black woman is the most mistreated person in America, or just in the world and culture.
The most unprotected.
The unprotected. However, I do believe that the Black man is the most targeted. It's just, we're unprotected, and that's a problem. But they are targeted and hunted by people. And
that's
each
true.
has kids, and it's so sad. And as a Black mother, our first instinct is to protect our children. And raising a Black man is super, super hard because you don't know what they're going through emotionally, especially if you're doing it as a single mother. But you don't know their experience. Being a Black man means so much, and it's so hard for me to explain it, but it's such a it's almost like a maze, because they don't have the same opportunities that I believe that a Black woman is afforded, just in a sense of, I know that I'm able to finagle my way through white America and do certain things at work that I just don't feel like
okay,
Black men are able to do. I just don't feel like they have the same opportunity to navigate white culture in the same way that we do. Now, I don't know this to be true for sure, but just from my personal experience, I feel like I've met super qualified Black men who are not given opportunities to just thrive and be themselves. They're hunted,
Right.
they're neglected, and I'm trying to change that with my own son, but eventually I have to give him to the world. So it's scary to raise a black boy, black man. It is.
Thank you for opening up about that, Emerald, because and make sure you all followed Emerald Knox at it's at Emerald
Emerald
Knox.
City. No, Emerald City.
Emerald City, I'm sorry. Emerald
Yeah,
City.
like the Wizard of Oz.
Yes, you actually just made me think about the Wiz. I'm like, the color is green.
Yes, it
But no, back to what you were saying. I just thank you for opening up to our listeners about the qualms, the challenge of raising a young Black boy, and then eventually a young Black man in America. I think what you have stated, I've also experienced. I also believe Black men are targeted. And when we're saying targeted, I don't know, I'm not just talking about guns pointed literally at their backs and
The
heads.
guns are the last resort.
I'm talking about advertising. I'm talking about buy this, buy that, culture, music, listen to this rapper, listen to that rapper. If there, I mean, there is literally a blueprint pushed on them, literally like you're going to end up in jail. 1 in 3 end up in jail. 1 in 3 ended up arrested. 1 in 3 ended or 4 shot and killed. And so here at the bottom line, I will bring you those real statistics so that we can follow up and have more specific discussions, because you're absolutely right. There are statistics that completely lead to the devaluing and oppression of the Black man in America from a professional standpoint, from an educational standpoint, and from a societal standpoint, and specifically from a criminal justice standpoint. They are targeted at every single level. And we already know how hard it is just to come out and graduate with a degree and get a regular job, being anybody in America, let alone someone who is literally born with a target on their back. So thank you for opening up about that. That's why I believe you being a Black mother, creating this movement in your community, having this small march. Like I saw the videos on social media of those kids, Black, white, and Asian children with signs marching, saying that Black lives matter, with their white, and Asian parents and Black mothers and fathers. It was something sweet. And it was something so innocent that I had to reach out to and speak with you. I had to reach out to interview you, because we can no longer take for granted the work of Black women. We're seeing, win with Black women right now. We have Black women in a position to become the next vice president of the United States right now. And so I wanted to highlight you and definitely give you kudos and a chance to speak and share your voice. Since you are literally creating a space for not just Black Americans, but all Americans. The thing I loved most was how diverse your march was. I mean, the videos are beautiful. Were you surprised at the diversity and the turnout for the Black Kids Matter march in Brooklyn?
Yes. So 100% I was surprised. Back to why we did the march in that way. My son was scared, so we left that march, that big march that was produced by someone else. And I came back to my group chat and I was like, wow, I don't want him to be left on the other side of history, but I need to create a space for him to be able to feel comfortable and safe to voice his opinion and to protest and let out that energy that we all have. So let's have like a faux march for the kids. It's almost like a play date. Like, let's get together, get our kids together, have them make their signs. We made sure that the signs were only positive messaging, and we reinforced positive things.
That's
so I
important.
tried to have the parents to stray away from doing defund 12, which is, these messages are important, but I didn't want our kids to be leading with oppressive messages like stop killing me or things like that. I was like, hey, let's have reinforcing messages that are reinforcing their greatness. So let's talk about Black Lives Mattering. Let's talk about Well, there's like a few cute signs that maybe you can show in the clip, but there's just like empowering messages that kids had to really think about. And even the white and Asian and all other races that make up Bed-Stuy, they came together, and I said, don't use oppressive messaging when you're referring to kids, because we internalize those messages. So no matter how many times you go to protest and you're screaming, stop killing me, you are actually attracting that energy to you, and it's draining. So we stayed away from that. Right. Oh, what the sign was, A is for activists or something. It was just cute. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so we got them together. I said, well, let me make a flyer for it, because, you know, other people might want it. I posted.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what were the forms of promotion that you used for the march? Because you organized it in how long? What, 2 weeks?
No, it was like 3 days. Because I decided I wanted to do it at the park on that Friday. It was a Monday. By Tuesday, I had made the flyer.
And what was the name of the park where the march took place?
Bon King Park, better known as Tompkins Park to localists, non-gentrifiers.
Come on, Brooklyn.
Right. So maybe a couple of days, and the word got out, and so many mothers have been like, thank you, because I want to take my kids to march, but we don't want them to get like stampeded over. Like, we want them to feel safe.
Right.
So it was the kids only. We tried to tell adults, like, if you don't have kids, you don't need to come. We love and appreciate your support, but let's do it for the kids. We marched around the small park. It's a very small park. We marched around twice. The kids were like, you know, holding their signs and screaming, Black Kids Matter. We had we had the Brooklyn Borough President come and walk behind them. We made sure to have all the adults walk behind their kids and let the kids march. And then there's an amphitheater at the park, so we had the kids say how they felt. I was a moderator. We didn't voice our opinions because they have new opinions. And to be honest, it was actually kind of heartbreaking that some of the kids that had gone into their teen years, like not teen, like preteen, 11, 12, they had the same opinions that we had, which were like oppressive. They felt defeated. And this is at 11 and 12 years old, and they were just sad. Some of the younger kids, like 3 and 4 years old, were, you know, still hopeful and just excited to be able to scream that their lives mattered. But we had that space for them to be able to talk, and a lot of people left and said, wow, it was an amazing moment that they won't forget. And the kids, I believe, in their minds, in their history, they're gonna feel like Martin Luther King. Like, they're gonna be, I was marching on the sidelines when I was 3 years old, and hopefully these things change and they'll feel like they really were a part of that change.
Amazing. I just have to give you kudos again. Like, and that's the thing. You don't get a public pat on the back. And so that's what I'm trying to do here in terms of bringing people bringing guests to read the bottom line, who are truly doing the work in the communities that you might not hear about on a magazine or on social media or on the news. But here, when it gets to the bottom line of the work that it's going to take to actually heal the racial tensions, heal these wounds, heal some of this trauma that these young Black kids are experiencing, it's going to take mothers like you, Emerald.
Yeah. And you know, trauma is, it starts so young.
Yeah. And I have to just point this out because it just made me think, Black mothers have always been the mother to everybody. You know, I think sometimes, and I just want to give you more praise and kudos, because sometimes we don't understand that even systemically and historically in our genes, we as Black women from the African diaspora, like descended from African women, the original people from the motherland in Africa. I'm gonna go there. You know, we have this
motherland.
We have this natural ability to nurture, this natural compassion. You know, you could have been like, this is only for Black kids and their Black parents and families. You could have been like, this is only for the single mothers. This is only for Black mothers. No, we as a people, African Americans, more than any other group, are always the most open, the most inviting to every other culture when it comes to our events, our culture, our activities, and our history. And I want to point that out. Not everyone can do what you did, and that's why it's such a beautiful thing that deserves attention. You did it in a way that could be remembered. It was significant. It was on Juneteenth, and you were able to get some press about it. Do you want to speak more about the journalists that came out? And then also, I do want you to share before we go about what you told me about what happened on the grass. Even when you kind of did a mimic of a sit-in, that's when people started to get a little bit uncomfortable. So can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had two marches. One was June 12th, and then the second one was Juneteenth, where we did that sit-in.
Awesome.
The first one was a protest, and the kids were able to speak. The second time around for Juneteenth, I was like, well, we could do another protest, but I think that people think the protests are cute. And this is like, it's cute for the kids, but it's powerful and it's meaningful and it's meant to send a message. So we are going to do a sit-in. A sit-in is to make people feel uncomfortable. When we did the first march, I am welcoming, I'm inviting to every culture, but they were standing in the park from their comfort zone on their blankets, cheering us on, clapping us on. Black kids matter, yes. So I was like, that doesn't sit well with me. We're going to go sit with them and have a picnic, and we're going to clap from our picnic blankets. And we're going to, we marched around the park twice. People were clapping. And then we started to go onto the grass, and people started to lay out their picnic blankets and to sit down and eat and just enjoy the community in the same way that our neighbors are enjoying them. And I mean, it was a little bit sarcastic or satirical. I was going around and telling all the white families, like, Happy Juneteenth. How are you feeling today?
Yes, Happy Juneteenth.
And they were saying, Happy Juneteenth. And I'm like, yeah, it's like a great day, you know? The same way you would say Happy 4th of July, Happy Juneteenth, and say it back to me.
Amen.
And it started off cool, and then we noticed that a lot of the white families left. And, you know, they started to casually grab their blankets and leave, which is a problem. But what I'm going to continue to do at that park is to just occupy it.
Right.
I'm busy, but I have to make it a point to go to that park because that's
occupy space.
And occupy space. So I've been doing twice weekly with my son. We've been boxing in the park. I'm going to have a boxing class.
Ooh.
I've been telling other people to just go. Don't have your beautiful picnic at Central Park. Go to your park and do the same thing there so people can see that you operate in excellence and that you occupy the space just as well. We have been neglecting these things in community. I have a kind of bizarre opinion of gentrification that's not as popular, but I do feel like if you occupy your space and see beauty in it before others come to your community and see it, then you have the first opportunity to gentrify yourself. Meaning just upgrade yourself in your settings. We tend to go outside of our community. We tend to go outside of our community to feel better and to do things and to have experiences, but we can have those same experiences within our community and we can save ourselves. So my thing with the sit-in is like, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to enjoy this space. I'm going to see this park and see opportunity here. And I'm going to save myself. I don't need anyone to save me. And I also don't need anyone to kind of, I don't know, displace me. Like, I'm enjoying this space. I'm reclaiming my space. So that's what I hope to do at the park and in Bedside in general. I'm holding on for dear life to just be an occupant here, a resident here.
Yes.
To see the beauty in the culture here and to become an owner and to show my community that we can live and thrive and we don't have to always be oppressed. So that's my mission on a bigger level. On a smaller level, oh, and just an update, we also created a Black Kids Matter mural and someone erased it.
What?
Yeah, so that was like drama.
Wow. So, oh no, we're going to have a follow-up about that because that's new information.
I got to back up. I had another event after Juneteenth and we did a community mural day and we got the mural back up and we told, you know, we kind of made noise about the fact that don't erase, even if it's chalk, let the rain erase it. It's not for you to erase this message that Black kids matter because the Black kids who come here, they need to know that their lives matter. And the white kids and every other kid who comes here needs to get this message from the beginning that Black lives matter and no one is less than any other person. We are all human and we all need to be treated fairly. So we already had our follow-up event and I'm going to keep doing things and making noise in that park as I think of them. I'm a mom and I think I told you this before, our group was more of a socialist group, but I'm moving more toward being an activist and creating a nonprofit organization. That will come eventually. But this work, I'm doing it on a whim, and I'm going to keep doing it, though. I'm not going to let up.
Yes, yes, from socialite to activist. Go
Okay.
ahead and tell them where to follow you.
You can follow me at Dope Moms Club on Dope Moms Club Inc. on Instagram, and my personal page is Emerald City, which is where I have a lot of fun. But most of my activism is done on Dope Moms Club Inc. And also, I have a cooking channel that's under construction. It's called Dinner with Miss
Yes.
Knox. By fall, I should have more of my things up there. But yeah, just get into me. Let's connect. I'm all about community and creating relationships with people that are empowering.
Yes, and you are empowering me. You are so powerful. I just love your voice. Again, please follow Miss Emerald. It's at Emerald City on Instagram, at Dope Moms Inc., and also at Dining with Miss Knox.
Dinner with Miss Knox?
Dinner with Miss Knox. Y'all need
Mm-hmm.
to go to Dinner with Miss Knox.
Yeah.
If you are in New York, if you are in Harlem, Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan, I just can't stress it enough. This is the woman you need to connect with because she is about her business. She's doing work in the community. If there's anyone who wants to partner with you, work with you, or interview you, how can they contact you, Emerald?
Definitely DM is fine. You also can hit me up at knoxbrandmedia@gmail.com. But DM is where I make a lot of my connections. I really do feel like social media can be used to do amazing things in the world. I don't think some people say social media is so fake, but there's real people behind these pages who are trying to
Yes.
make things happen. So I make it a habit to answer my DMs and also to connect and listen to people. And I'll post things in my DM where I want people to respond and let me know how they're feeling because we're all human and social media is so powerful if we use it right. So DM is fine.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. And here's my last question for you, and we'll see how long we go on about this topic. The 2020 presidential election.
Yeah.
Who are you voting for?
So, I'm definitely not voting for Trump, but I do feel like I don't want to just vote for Biden just because, I just
Really?
don't want to do that just because. I feel like I just have mixed feelings about it. I feel like I want to hear something real. It shouldn't be an either or. I want more options. I want somebody to really present real solutions for me. I don't follow it closely though, so I don't have a huge authority to speak on this. But I haven't heard anything that made me say like he's the one. And I'm like a person who doesn't want to settle.
Hmm.
I will vote for the best option for all of us, but I do feel like the presidential election and just the government in general is we have a huge opportunity to recreate that because it
Yes.
shouldn't be an either or. I haven't heard anything that sounds so beneficial to me. I don't want to hear things like, I mean, these things are great. Like, oh, everybody can, we'll make weed legal and things like that. All of that stuff is cool, but they play to like hip hop culture and things that are kind of like still, still feel like some of the messaging is shady. And it's not
Yeah.
about empowering like people for real. It's not about
Yeah.
saying like, hey, we're going to make sure that we are adding, I don't know, just giving more opportunities to Black people in every industry. Are they going
Hmm.
to let us into manufacturing, into farming, into mass
Hmm.
production? I don't want to hear that I can smoke weed. Like, what? I don't know. But people do find these messages good, I guess. But I just feel like it still plays to this idea that Black people are less than and that all we want to do is like have entertainment. And
Okay.
because I
Preach.
work in cybersecurity and also I work in academia, I just see that there's a huge world that we're not participating in, and there's an easier way of living life. And also there's a huge, I would love to hear somebody with an opportunity that's presenting an opportunity for Black people to just be Black and live. We always have to operate in excellence and we always are striving for goals and doing this and that. But what
Mm.
about if there was something that just allowed us the opportunity to like get our housing and live the same way casually and nonchalantly that other Americans are afforded? I don't hear that. I just hear like, oh, we'll give you a grant or you can try to do this and do that. But what about just being alive and living? Oh, I don't know. But
You hear that? You hear that, Joe Biden? At Joe Biden, we want to feel free. How can you help us to do that?
yeah.
And that's what you said. I'm gonna go back and repeat what you said because this is what I love about Black women, and this is why America needs us and loves us, whether they admit it or not. You're going to vote for who is best for the country. You said, you really don't like the two options. You really don't like neither Trump nor Biden, or you're confused about what the messaging is. You don't know exactly who to trust. Everything is super shady. But at the end of the day, you're going to make a decision that's going to be best for your country. That is called patriotism. Yeah. Because we love this land. You love your family. You love your son. And even the work that you're doing in your community shows, in addition to you voting, that you do care about your community. And you're going to change it for the way that it needs to be changed for the better, whether the president knows what that way is or not.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you right now, you definitely know better what your community needs than Joe Biden. And I think that that's, again, another issue with mainstream news. Here at Read the Bottom Line, I'm going to analyze it. Mainstream news years ago just lost the local connection to all politics when it comes to the presidential election. There is no breakdown of true change. I haven't seen or heard or a real focus on any plans from either candidate. We know Trump is a joke, but Joe Biden and so many of the other candidates, I feel like they operate in their own Twitter worlds and they operate in their own campaigns.
Idea of like classic, I guess, should I call it democracy? It's not democracy, but it's just like the classic way that the Democratic Party operates, which is just like,
yeah, old school politics like this.
I don't like it because, like even when you're thinking about being a Republican, it's about wealth and abundance.
Conservatism and being Christian.
Poor. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I just think it all needs to be redone. And to be honest, I'm an independent. I'm neither Democratic.
Amen. Okay. Right.
But I have mixed views about that, and I will say that the local politics is something I'm actually paying a lot more attention to. So,
Emerald for mayor, come on! I see it.
People always
see it. Yes,
it can be like a Bed-Stuy mayor because I don't
know.
No,
you should definitely run for office. You should definitely run for office in New York. Yeah. I'm putting it out there right here. The first episode of Read the Bottom Line. We're speaking to Emerald Knox right now. She's going to run for office, you all. Look out. This is what we need. More Black women who are doing the work. Locally, getting the power, the money, and the budget to do more of the work on a larger scale.
Exactly, because the money is there. It's so interesting what I've learned during the past few months about the different positions that are here. Even thinking about food, and I was thinking about dinner with Miss Knox and about how the local supermarkets, I want to say that there's like a person who's in charge of like the supermarkets that are here, and there's also somebody who the supermarkets decide what kind of food are in each community.
Wow.
Which is like,
that's how food deserts are created. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm learning more about these things, and obviously I feel like activism and social responsibility is a huge part of me and my brand. And with politics, I mean, I would have to be a part of the change because, again, I was telling someone this earlier, like, politicians are they have to like live this secret life or keep all these things enclosed, and then sometimes people are like exposing them, and I like to have fun and I like to do me, and I feel like if I was a politician, I would live a transparent life, and a lot of people don't like that. They hold politicians to a different standard, which I don't think is fair, because if you're doing good in the world, you should still be able to live your life. So if I became a politician, it would be a little bit different.
Okay, and we need it.
No one's going to tell me about like what I have, how I have brunch with my friends, or how I live my life. I'm going to live it, but I'm going to do good. So I'll be a local politician or a social politician for now.
Yes, activism is literally exuding. It's just I love it. I love it when I feel an activist in their grind, in their zone. I just love it. And yes, we need more Black women in local offices, local government, and national government. I'm just so happy to have had this time with you. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you.
I look forward to, so everybody needs to pay attention to this podcast you're doing, because the way that I predict that you're going to break down just like the things that are going on in the country and politics and some of the news that we discussed that the other Black platforms don't kind of dig into, I'm excited to see that from a Black point of view, because I do want to hear about more than just the highlights. I would love to hear some of the deeper news. So I expect to keep listening to your podcast to keep me abreast of what's happening in the country and worldwide, and also to hear it from that voice. So good luck to you. Thank you for having me on your first episode, and I look forward to listening. Is it weekly, or how
Yes.
do you hear this?
Yes, it's going to be the first 5 episodes are going to premiere on August 31st. So look out on August 31st. I'm going to have all of my episodes available to listen, to click. There are also going to be some interviews. I'm going to upload our interview on the YouTube channel, as well as going to be at Read TV, my YouTube channel, Read TV. So definitely look out for more from Read the Bottom Line, my podcast. It's coming August 31st. And thank you so much for that shout out. I appreciate it. This is definitely going to be a place where I'm not going to play around. This is only about the facts of the latest news that, that's happening in Black America that we don't hear about, like these hangings. We have got to get to the bottom of what's going on. All these Black people are not committing suicide, especially 20-year-olds committing back-to-back suicide. I don't buy it. So
are we hearing from their families as well? Like, all right, so I mean, mental illness.
It's a thing. It's real.
Mental illness and depression is something that is in the Black community that we don't talk about as much.
We're talking more about it now.
Every person, I'm not going to say that every person hung themselves, but I do feel like we should have compassion to know that some Black people are sad and to that point of hanging themselves. And they're doing it, some people, not everybody, but I do want us to say that sometimes we're having our own mental issues and we are hurting ourselves. And we need to have compassion for those people, because some of the families will say, well, we seen it coming, but like, well, why didn't you stop it? We kind of like brush it off. And it's not cool. It's not cool. But no, yes, we need to get down to the hangings. Mm-hmm. The mental illness and depression is real, for real, in the Black community.
Yeah, we've got to get to the bottom of what happened with Robert Fuller. And he is someone that police say had this past of mental illness, even though the actual evidence in terms of the actual event and incident that took place, which was his hanging, don't add up. And so what I am against is leaning forward and your broadcasting. It's probably going to be a suicide, guys, before any investigative work has actually been done. And my issue with that is putting out within 24 to 48 hours that whatever happened is most likely a suicide. And then a day later saying, yeah, based on our investigation, it was a suicide. What investigation? Who did you interview? Who did you talk to? What? Wait. Huh? Wait. And so that's what we're seeing. And that's what I'm going to be talking more about, because there was, and I'm going to post it, a video of a very upset crowd and community in Palmdale, California, where Robert Fuller, 24-year-old beautiful young boy, was found hung near a city square in a tree. And then a few days later, police shot and killed his brother in a separate incident. Yes.
Excuse me?
Police shot and killed his half-brother in front of his child and his girlfriend, who were in the car at the time. 2 separate incidents. But they say that those 2 incidents are not connected, except for the fact that they were brothers.
Wow.
And then 10 days prior to that, another Black man was found hung. And so they're saying there's no connection. And so, we've got to ask questions, and we've got to demand investigations, because I can't just buy that all these people have committed suicide. And especially if I know that you're going to be slow to do the police work because of what the community may say and the anger that the community may have. The police chief literally at this community meeting that I'm going to post on Facebook later, they said, we know that you all are frustrated, but can we please stop talking about lynchings? And the community was in an uproar, because it's like, well, how can you keep saying it's a suicide when things don't add up, but you don't want us to talk about lynchings? So why not think about what could have potentially happened other than a suicide? So It's for me, I just, you know, and I know we're still going. For me,
I'm heartbroken just from hearing that.
and I'm so sorry. That is, and that's why I want to take, I'm every episode, I'm going to highlight every name of each person that has been quote unquote committed a suicide since the George Floyd protests began. Because that's when you started seeing it. And you started to see it right in Ferguson after Michael Brown was killed. You started to see activists getting killed, and it was serial killings because they were all put in a white car set on fire, and they were finding activists set in cars set on fire. There were three. It happened just like that, back to back to back. They didn't connect them. They didn't want to investigate it. They didn't get to the bottom of it. I have to go back and actually look to see if anybody was ever arrested or brought in for those instances. And then also we saw with after Trayvon Martin, the black churches burning. There were a slew of black churches being burned down. So what we have to talk about is when we see protests, there is always a response from the other side, whether that's a white supremacist group, KKK members, all these other groups. When we're protesting, yeah, there might be a lot of white people out here getting rowdy in the streets for Black Lives Matter. Believe me, there is an equal response, but we don't hear about this response. We see it, but we don't get the real story that gives you the full picture of this is a response to this.
100%. And I have just an add-on to people are protesting beside you, but they won't even look to the left or right to say hi to you. So some of these marches, I don't know, it's more self-serving for the other party. Ask me how I'm doing. Talk to me. You don't want to have lunch with me after. You'll march on my behalf, but you don't even want to engage with me. And I have a problem with that. I don't like it. It's phony.
We don't like that fake shit.
Right. It's it's like you won't even say, hey, you won't even look at me.
And that's the work that needs to be done. And that's why even it starts with a march, but it can't end with a march.
Oh, the march is just the beginning, and it's the loud part. And, you know, I have mixed feelings also about marches because it's screaming and shouting, but what's the agenda behind it? What's the action items that we're going to take?
Right.
It's a lot of work.
It is.
Sometimes I'm like, really?
And
this is my assignment?
And so that's what it is. And you know what? They used to do a full-time Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, but they were also raising money now too, and they was getting paid. Yeah. Somebody was paying for a little bit.
And when money starts to be involved and you start to be a puppet from the other side, and you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm meditating daily on it and really thinking about what part I could play. But I won't sit back and I won't be I don't know, blindsided by these marches or about the alliance that has the faux alliance that I'm seeing as well. I'm not gonna. I don't see it. Sometimes people are just doing it to serve themselves. They don't really want to do the work, and they do it from their comfort zone. I don't like it. That's what the sit-in was about. I'm gonna sit next to you, and I'm gonna say Happy Juneteenth. Say it back. You're uncomfortable. So do you really feel like my life matters? Talk to me. Let's talk about gentrification. Why don't you want me here? Why are you following me around to displace me? Why? Leave me alone. Help me. If you feel like we need to have more amenities in the community, fund it. Don't come here and try to displace people and then constantly follow them around to displace them. It's a game of cat and mouse, and I feel like that's a lot.
It is, and you just let it all out because I've been seeing more every day. There's a new Karen video coming out of Brooklyn, coming out of Bronx, coming out of Harlem. They are not playing with y'all. So thank you so much again, Emerald. We could talk forever because seriously, these are topics that are near and dear to our heart and are happening every day.
Well, I'm happy to come on and be like your how do they have those correspondents at CNN, like the recurring people? Yes. If you want to have those, I'm happy to be on your list of people.
Yes, thank you so much. I will definitely accept your accept you for that because I need that. I love having someone to talk to about these issues. Of course, and our listeners as well. You are listening to Read the Bottom Line. Again, my name is Danielle Reed. We're about to sign off. I've been talking to Miss Emerald Knox. Again, follow her at Emerald City on Instagram, and make sure you check out everything that she's doing in the community.